Hello, everybody. This is StockerFinance. I'm your host, David Scheuer, and today we're going to be taking a look at Spotify and why I am making a bullish call on it, as well as why I've actually invested in it myself in recent days. So, first off, here, you may have heard Spotify recently acquired the Joe Rogan podcast, and that's a topic we're going to touch on. Another thing, though, in the past 5 days, largely because of that acquiring of Joe Rogan podcast, the stock has surged an immense 28%, actually as high as 30%. It has a 52-week high, which it recently made, of 196.75 a share, and a 52-week low of 109.18 a share. The interesting thing about Spotify is they're currently not profitable, which you kind of see a lot. It's kind of a pattern with a lot of these tech companies. We see that with Snapchat. We've seen that with plenty of social media platforms. We see that with Spotify. We've seen that with a lot of other companies early on. Tesla wasn't profitable for a long time. Same with Amazon. Same with a lot of companies. And it's really hard to analyze and decide whether a company is undervalued or overvalued when it is not currently profitable. Because if you take a really value investor's approach of just looking at the balance sheet, well, just by looking at the balance sheet, you're going to look at that and say, this company isn't worth anything. In fact, it's worth less than zero. It's losing money. It's in debt. Etc. But the thing with these companies is they're growing immensely. And so you have to have this future outlook and look at consumer behavior as well as the potential for profitability into the future. And that's kind of a new way of judging these companies, which we really haven't seen before. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and let's analyze Spotify. First, before I get into too many opinions here, let's just go ahead and look at their financials. And we are using HyperCharts. Shout out to HyperChange for providing this service. It is amazing. If you want a super quick breakdown, I'm not sponsored by them at all, but it's hypercharts.co. And this is Spotify. Its ticker is SPOT. So anyways, the first thing we're going to look at here is monthly active users. This is a very important piece of data here because it shows whether Spotify is growing or not. And the really important one here is premium subs. Those are people who are paying a subscription. So monthly active users is above, and if we look at here, it's actually at 286 million daily active users, and that was Q1 of this year. And then we have its premium subs, which is about half of it, at 130 million premium subs. So a lot of their monthly active users are not premium subs, which is kind of interesting here, but that is a good sign as well. And we can take that two different ways, actually. On one side, we can say, well, people are they not subscribing because they don't need the service? Well, Spotify still runs ads, and they're still making money off of them from those ads. But if they don't want ads and they pay this subscription service, which is more valuable in the long run, we're going to see those premium subscriptions. And so for it to be about half and half, to me, seems pretty normal and actually shows that a lot more people may be switching over. There's a lot more room to grow in the premium subsection. And just the fact that it's growing immensely. I mean, last quarter, Q4 of 2019, they're at 271 million monthly active users. Sorry, I keep saying daily active users. It's monthly active users. I'm just used to saying daily active users for analyzing these companies. And in Q1 this year, again, 286 million. So a pretty massive jump there of over 10 million monthly active users there. And that's in one quarter. And we've pretty much seen that since, Q2 and 16. Just kind of a jump of 10 million monthly active users every quarter. We went from, it's just a really steady graph here. And that's what you love to see. Just a steady, healthy growth. But next thing we're going to look at is their revenue segments. So as I said, the premium subscriptions are significantly more valuable, and in the long run especially, than the ad-supported revenue. And we see that here. Ad revenue is a fraction of the size of their premium content. So if we look at here, and this is that's interesting, it's in euros. I'll try to translate that over in the edits here. So from the revenue segments, if we look at the ad-supported, it's 148 million euros, and the premium is 1.7 billion euros. So a pretty significant amount of revenue coming in there, but the next thing we're going to need to look at is operating income as well as revenue. So revenue at 1.848 billion euros, and in gross profit here, they're looking at 472 million with an operating income loss of 17 million. Look at their net income here. So as you can tell, they have been profitable in their net income about 3/4 of the last two. So they haven't been very steady with this. It fluctuates a lot. And I have a feeling that has to do with acquisitions and spending a lot of money one quarter, spending no money the next, things like that. For example, this coming quarter, I doubt they're going to be profitable. They spent, nearly $100 million or so on acquiring the Joe Rogan podcast, as well as acquiring other things. There's the quarter when they acquired Gimlet Media and a bunch of other podcasts. So if they're acquiring a lot, if they're spending a lot, then they're not going to be as profitable, or they're not going to be profitable in terms of net income. And we have seen, though, in the past that they have been profitable, as far as 442 million euros in Q4 of 2018, which is a good sign. And more recently in Q1 of this year, I can't really see how much that is, but it was basically zero. So they pretty much broke even there. Now let's look at their margins. So gross margin stays pretty steady around 20%. We're not seeing much of a change there. Their profit margin, again, that's going to fluctuate substantially with how much they spend, and their operating margin is fairly steady as well. Yeah, it's not too bad. Not too much to look at there. I'm not going to talk about that too much. Next, let's look at their operating expenses. This is a pretty important one. As one might guess, the majority of their operating expenses are in sales and marketing, then general administrative costs, and then research and development. Research and development is an interesting one because it's a pretty substantial amount. For Spotify, it doesn't seem like they need too much research and development. So anyways, the interesting thing about the research and development section here is a pretty substantial chunk of change. It's about a third of the entirety of their operating expenses, which is just below 500 million out of Q1 this year. And the interesting thing here is what are they researching and developing? The platform itself, I think, is extremely solid. I feel like there's not too many updates they need to make to the platform itself. However, could they be releasing a new platform or a major update to their platform? That's something that I want to talk about as we get towards the end of this video. So yeah, anyways, guys, to just sum it up here, they're not entirely profitable yet. Or they aren't. Their EPS as of Q1 2020 was around negative 11 cents, which just beat the expectations. We've seen as high as 56 cents or close to that in Q3 of 2019, which is a good sign. So the question here is, can they be profitable? Is Spotify going to be profitable? It's a question for a lot of these companies. You see Uber, it could never be profitable. We see companies just all across the board, these tech companies who are innovating substantially, but maybe they don't have the, even though their system is great, it's used by millions and millions of people, they're not able to benefit from the profitability of that, and that's not going to be sustainable in the long run. But is Spotify able to be profitable? Absolutely. They've already proven it before, which is an excellent sign. If you've never been profitable before, that's really, it's hard to decide that. But with Spotify, we can clearly see a trend towards a more sustainable profitability. I think right now they're just spending a lot of money on acquiring, growing their platform, similar to what Netflix does. And this is a comparison I'm going to make. So Netflix and Spotify are very similar. Netflix is basically the Spotify video, and Spotify is the, it's basically Netflix for audio. Both of them have a subscription service, and actually the pricing are fairly similar on both of them. And so they're pretty similar services there, and one of the main similarities is they both spend a lot of money and a lot of time investing in acquiring content and acquiring, the licensing, etc., to a bunch of recurring content or content that they can put onto their platform, which will in turn attract more users. Getting the Joe Rogan podcast exclusively on Spotify I think it was an awesome move. It cost them a good chunk of change, but for Spotify, I don't think that's terrible. And in the long run, this is going to benefit them substantially. And something I want to look at here that I'm just looking up really quick is the views on Joe Rogan, just to show how powerful this is and how many users they're going to attract to Spotify. So you can hear the intro there. So, Joe Rogan gets millions and millions of views, and not on videos that are, little clickbaity videos that are a few minutes long. No, he gets millions of views on videos that are, and I should say podcasts, but I'm looking at the YouTube channel here is why I'm saying videos. But that's going to play a part here in a second. On podcasts that are hours. They're not short podcasts. These aren't 30-minute podcasts. These are up to 3 hours, 4 hours. Sometimes it's a short Joe Rogan podcast is just over an hour. A long one, you could say, is over 4 hours. These podcasts And that's not even including the clips. The clips from these podcasts, which is on JRE Clips on YouTube, gets hundreds of thousands of views and as well as millions of views. So he's raking in tons of views. I mean, an absurd amount. And he's a very loyal fan base as well that, will always tune in, watch. And so getting them over to Spotify is going to be huge. Joe Rogan said last year that his show actually reached around 190 million downloads a month. That is a immense amount of downloads. 190 million downloads per month. That's crazy. And for Spotify to acquire that, I mean, for 100 million, for 2 downloads, they're paying $1, essentially. And for the YouTube channel, which I was talking about, so the YouTube channel will remain live. It won't contain full episodes, though. There might be clips, so the clips are going to stay, or other supplementary content, which could benefit from YouTube's search algorithm and push people to listen to Spotify's, or to full episodes on Spotify. So I still think it's a great move by Spotify to acquire this. And yeah. All right, guys. So now I want to talk about something a little more out there that I think is very likely to happen. And this goes along with Spotify's research and development costs and their Joe Rogan acquirement. Because the thing is, if you've watched Joe Rogan's video, especially the long one, watching it live is very special. There's stuff that happens that you don't see on just listening to it. You can just listen to a lot of them. It's super entertaining. But watching them live, there's a lot of funny situations, people moving around, sometimes they're standing up and doing something. And it's really a visual experience as well, in terms of you get more entertainment value from it. On top of this, Joe's made it a big deal about having his podcast be free. People being able to listen to it entirely for free. Now, by leaving YouTube and going to Spotify, that's not necessarily the case, because people have to pay for a Spotify subscription unless they just want to get bombarded with ads. And to be honest, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. And you can't even really search specific video music and stuff like that on Spotify if you don't have premium. So it's pretty hard to actually listen to Joe Rogan, the podcast on Spotify, without paying money. But the interesting thing here, with the research and development, with Joe Rogan, being pretty persistent and insisting on offering his podcast for free to people, and on top of that, the video part of Joe Rogan being a very big section, and Joe Rogan leaving YouTube, which, again, remember I just said how many millions of views Joe Rogan gets on YouTube? For him to leave YouTube is a big deal. So, is Spotify coming out with a video platform? That's the interesting take here. And I think they are, personally. I don't know how it's going to look like, but as far as I'm concerned, YouTube basically has a monopoly on the creator space, the video space here for people to upload videos freely. There's some other small ones like Vimeo and stuff, but they're not even close to competitors. YouTube dominates its complete monopoly. And the thing is, YouTube's received lots of criticism. There's been lots of negatives for, creators being on YouTube. There's been, censoring. There's been a whole array of stuff that I'm not going to get into. You can do some more research on, the criticisms of YouTube, whatever it may be. So for Spotify, which is a well-known brand that has millions of users, and for someone like Joe Rogan, who's a, fairly trusted individual, is a pretty huge, a massive following. His podcast gets millions of views on YouTube. For them to be leaving YouTube and going to Spotify, and then for Spotify to be creating a video platform where he can upload his podcast, is going to be massive. Spotify has a web app already, so it'd go perfectly with that. And Spotify, they've been playing music videos. I've noticed when you listen to a song, sometimes a music video will play or some sort of video. So they have some video features worked in there. I mean, they're spending $162 million last quarter. That's how much they spent on research and development. What are they doing with 162 million euros? That's a lot of money, especially in US dollars. That's even more. So the thing is here, what are they doing with that much money? I think they could easily, because I said, the platform itself, Spotify, besides, some little updates then and there, doesn't seem like $162 million is needed to make a better platform. I feel like the platform runs extremely smoothly. I enjoy it a lot. I don't think much needs to change there. But maybe that money is going towards creating a video platform. And whether it's going to compete with YouTube or not, I don't know. But if they keep acquiring YouTubers like this, it's going to be huge. And they could really make a. I mean, imagine if they acquire Joe Rogan. Next, they acquire some other, more long form podcaster type style videos on YouTube. And then maybe they get some other famous ones. Maybe PewDiePie leaves. That'd be huge. Whatever it may be, I think more people we could see going to Spotify if they open that and if they offer a great deal. All they need to do is pay more. They need to not censor anything. And Joe Rogan, you can't censor him. He's not going to allow that. There's no way. So I think Spotify could be pretty huge here. We'll see what happens. But anyways, this is kind of my analysis. And now really quickly. So really quickly, before I end the video here, I just want to talk about, again, why I am bullish, just a quick summary. So I'm bullish for a few reasons here. Number one, Spotify is going to be profitable in the future. There's no doubt about that. You can just look at the financial statements. You could tell it's heading towards a sustainable and long-term, profitability. On top of that, I think Spotify is innovating quickly, and I think they're making the right acquisitions. It's hard, it's easy to criticize a company for making acquisitions that I don't agree with necessarily. There's plenty of companies who make acquisitions, and I said, you know what? I don't think that was worth the money. I don't think they should have acquired them. I think Spotify is making very good acquisitions by acquiring Gimlet and now acquiring Joe Rogan. I think it's a very good. I think they're doing very good. They're spending their money well, is what I'm trying to say. On top of that, I think their research and development spending shows, as along with the Joe Rogan acquirements, etc. I think they are heading towards a new interesting thing related to video, and I think they could have a competing video platform to YouTube, which has a monopoly on the video space. So for Spotify even to take a small chunk of that viewership and translate it over to Spotify exclusively, and then they have premium subscriptions already built into Spotify. They already run ads. They already have the same system as YouTube. They pay their artists for views, etc., or listens. So a lot of the systems that YouTube has, Spotify has built in, and I think it would be pretty easy for them to implement a video platform. But we'll see what happens in the future. I'm really interested in Spotify to see where they go. I have a decent position in them, not huge. It's not super small either. Just a decent sized position. I'm not going to say the exact amount. And anyways, this is my quick summary analysis of why I am bullish on Spotify. And we'll see where this goes. It's going to be an interesting one to follow. I'm StockerFinance. My name is David Scheuer. I'm the host. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at StockerFinance for updates and for more opinions and news, etc. of the investing world. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.